About how many years do you think we got left?
Well, I'm seeing a lot of late-stage civilization vibes these days.
Yeah, seriously.
Seriously. But we've got some geopolitical wild cards with Ukraine and Taiwan, and then AI, which is called it's called the singularity for a reason, like because you don't know what's going to happen.
But what does that look like? How do you regulate AI, for example?
I think something that I think would be very powerful is to say that all social media companies have to open source their algorithms, so that at least it's known what they're suppressing, and they can't secretly suppress things.
Right. That would be a law that requires open source. That if you're going to censor, you better do it transparently.
So the aspiration here for X/Twitter is to be, I would call it the least untruthful place on the internet. Like we should acknowledge that there will be things that are untrue on the platform, but we'd like to be the least untrue of any place. And
people have a right to be wrong anyway. They have a right.
Well, a right to be wrong. But I think we're succeeding if Twitter is the place where you can get the most accurate, the closest to the truth, and different perspectives on the truth, to the degree that it's subjective. That's the goal.
We were, banned from Twitter in March 2022.
No White Claw?
And then now we're invited and we get to come here. And we weren't even allowed to go into our account,
It's like barbarians storming the barbarians, not merely at the gate, they're through the gate and pillaging the merch. Yeah. That's what we were doing.
That worked.
We're in and we're pillaging the merch.
You're the barbarian.
You came in, so you took over, you closed the deal. There was the lawsuit, there was all that. We were like riding a roller coaster wondering what was actually going to happen, because we had no idea if you would ever actually take over the company, if we would ever actually get out of Twitter jail, because we had vowed to never delete that tweet. So we were watching and just kind of wondering what's really happening. So you came in, though, and you said, bring back the Babylon Bee, bring back these accounts. And then there was pushback, right? Didn't you get pushback internally? That's what was reported anyway, just going off of what was in the news.
Yeah. Well, I'm seeing a lot of late-stage civilization vibes these days.
Yeah, seriously.
Seriously. I don't know, man. There's so many wild cards. The short term we've got. We had the financial crisis, probably some economic thing, but whatever, those things happen from time to time. But we've got some geopolitical wild cards with Ukraine and Taiwan, and then AI, which is called it's called the singularity for a reason, like because you don't know what's going to happen.
To find out.
We're trying to apply the rules consistently at Twitter, so that the NPR thing is like, well, if we're going to call some media state affiliated, well, there's plenty of media organizations in the U.S. or in the West that are state affiliated. So then we should apply the label equally, and then they got very upset about that. And said that state affiliated implies that the state has editorial authority of an influence over the content. I'm like, so you're saying you don't have that? Right. How self-aware are you? It
was on their website.
Well, yeah. NPR literally on their own website said, government funding is essential to their operation.
Right.
Yeah. So, I think it's reasonable for an advertiser to decide what content they appear next to. We'll make sure that their ad doesn't appear next to something controversial or whatever they consider controversial. So some things are fairly obvious. Like you don't want, say, a kid's movie showing up next to some racy content of some kind, like NSFW stuff. Or come visit Disneyland next to dead bodies in Ukraine.
Right.
It's like it's reasonable to have these adjacency controls. just like, advertisers could pick a particular time of day to advertise. Yeah, I mean, this is the fastest I've seen anything grow. It's like wildfire. So I think it's going to be good. So there's subscriptions, and then there's share of advertising revenue. And we just really need to complete writing the software for figuring out like what ads were associated with what content, and then figure out like some reasonable revenue share. And I don't want, say, a kids movie showing up next to some racy content of some kind, like NSFW stuff. So or come visit Disneyland next to dead bodies in Ukraine.
Right.
If you keep saying that you can't make fun of things, or something's always punching down, like, well, there's not going to be anything left to make humor. I don't think we want a humorless future.
And so when you're not allowed to make fun of the funniest thing,
Right.
that's why sites like ours do well. There's a lot of
Sure.
people who are just holding back on the things that are right for comedy.
I know.
No? I'd love to go there. And
Um,
he's trying to make it so that it's, comedians can come there, cancel-free environment, make the jokes you're not supposed to make. It's applause, it's not laughter.
yes, true.
Clapter, somebody called it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny seeing some of the snippets from the White House Correspondents' Club dinner, where Biden was getting a lot of claps, but it was like, is this your cheering squad or what?
Right. A lot of applause.
A lot of applause. Yeah. Whoever stops clapping last is out of the club or whatever.
Do you think it's possible to run a free speech platform that is profitable?
We're gonna find out. So, I think so. I mean, I'm not sure. Like, you can definitely sell your soul to the devil here and increase revenue. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So that's, and I think it becomes tough especially if you're a publicly traded company. You can be sued for not, taking the actions that maximize profitability. So, Jack was right that it was impossible to reform as a public company because you just get excoriated in the market and have a zillion lawsuits. Anyway, so it's like I'm hopeful the platform can be, like I said, the least untrue, closest to true and complete.
Where he was talking about how the thing that keeps him up at night is how the media, there's like diversity in the media now, and there didn't used to be. And so now you have different narratives and people basically inhabiting different realities.
And then AI, which is, called it's called the singularity for a reason, like, because you don't know what's going to happen. Don't know. We're on the singularity, AI singularity event horizon, circling the black hole.
And where does that fall on the scale for you? That's
You
why
think there should be regulation and stuff like that, right? But what does that look like? How do you regulate AI, for example?
Well, I think you start off with an insight committee that has people that are independent from the leading players, as well as maybe some representatives from the leading players, and that's an insight committee.
What was the conversation behind the scene around restoring accounts?
There were a few questions around why it's carrying a sink. I'd say like the analogy, it would be like being teleported into a plane that's in a nosedive with its engines on fire and the controls don't work. The most compelling tweets from your followers are also in for you. Mm-hmm. So that's I think the metric. That's the metric I've got the whole organization focused on is unregretted user time. I mean, so because I frequently hear someone tell me they spent a lot of time on TikTok, but they kind of hate themselves afterwards. And so I'll call that so regretted user time. So if we want it to be that you spent the time on X/Twitter, and you're glad you did, like you were informed and entertained. Every civilization has a lifespan.
About how many years do you think we got left?
Well, I'm seeing a lot of late stage civilization vibes these days.
Yeah, seriously.
Seriously. Um, um, I don't know, man. There's so many wild cards. I mean, the short term we've got. Um, we had the financial crisis, probably some economic thing, but whatever. Those things happen from time to time. But we've got some geopolitical wild cards with Ukraine and Taiwan, and then AI, which is called it's called the singularity for a reason, like because you don't know what's going to happen. It's like a black hole. You go in the black hole, what happens? Don't know. We're on the singularity, AI singularity event horizon, circling the black hole.